In Unreal Engine, I am simply starting with the default first-person map with the included additional content. The first thing I'm going to do is make a new bank named main, ensuring that the name matches the one that we made in Wise. I'm going to right-click it to first refresh the sound banks, then again to save the sound bank to the project. To start, I'm going to demonstrate our user-defined sound effect. I'm going to drag in an AK ambient sound into our viewport. Then inside the object's detail menu, I'm going to change the event to the play user birds. Next, I'm going to hit the Blueprints Add Script blue button and name the new blueprint Play User Birds. Once the blueprint editor opens up, head into the event graph. We want this sound effect to start playing right when the player enters the scene, so we'll only need event begin play. So you can go ahead and get rid of the other two events. Attached to event begin play, we're going to make our post event. We're going to set the event as play user birds, and we're going to chain the actor to get player character. This will make sure that the event is posted right on the player. Now, we're going to make something that will be useful to us at the later section. When you are in your scene, you'll only have an audio representation of the sound effect functioning. You can vaguely guess where an audio is being emitted simply because it gets louder as you approach and or face towards it. What if we had a visual representation to show this as well? We can do this by utilizing Unreal Engine's Draw Debug Sphere and Wise's Get Attenuation Radius. So chain the post event to a Draw Debug Sphere. This requires quite a bit of information, but we don't need to fill in everything. Let's start with center. Where is the sphere going to be centered? Well, we want it to be centered on the object emitting our sound. So let's get this object's location. Start by getting a reference to self. Then, chain that to a get actor location. Basically, this is taking a look at the object's transform and grabbing its location from that. Then all you have to do is chain that to the debug sphere center. Next up is the radius. How large is the sphere going to be? Well, thankfully, Wise gives us some information about our attenuation. Remember when we made the max distance of our ambience attenuation back in part 1 of Wise? The 35 value we put in will become the radius for our debug sphere. So all we need to do is get attenuation radius and change that to the radius. Note, this function only works in AK component blueprints, so you will not find this in a standard actor blueprint. The rest of this is inconsequential, but I will change a few things to make the sphere easier to see. Change the line color to something red so that it stands out, and change the duration that it stays in the scene to 500 seconds. Great, that's all we need to do. Compile and save the blueprint and move back into your project. Save that as well, and let's test it out. It sounds pretty good, though it is a bit strange. The bird will follow its path regardless of whether the player is moving or turning. Let's change to our game defined sound effect and see if we can get better results. Change the name of our blueprint to Play Game Birds. Then you'll also have to change the event name to Play Game Birds in two different spots, once in the object's detail menu and once in the blueprint's event graph. Also, we need to change one more thing. We want the sound to be heard from a particular point, not exactly on the player. So we need to make the post event's actor reference the game object this blueprint is attached to rather than referencing the player. So delete the get player character function and go over to self. You can simply chain this and make it the new actor for the post event. Compile and save the blueprint and head back into the main editor. Take the play game birds object and move it into one of the trees. Now, we need to make a few adjustments before we can test this out. Go back into the details menu and go into the AK component tab. At the very top, there is an attenuation scaling factor, which allows you to increase or decrease the max distance of your attenuation by a certain factor. When I made the ambience max distance 35, it was the perfect radius size for the units in Unity. In Unreal Engine, however, 35 is tiny, and the sound can't even be heard unless the camera is directly within the emitter. That's why the attenuation scaling factor is useful to us. I'm going to set it to 75. I'm also going to go under the occlusion tab and set the occlusion refresh interval to 0. We'll go over occlusion in a future video. Let's save this and test it out. That's not too bad. Now all we need to do is implement our ambient birds, which utilizes a lot of the same concepts we already encountered. I'm going to copy and paste the play game birds blueprint and rename it to play ambient birds. I'm also going to change the event name of the details menu and the event graph, just like I did before. One last thing, I'm going to change the attenuation scaling factor to 50, since I'm going to have a lot of these ambient bird sounds running at the same time. What I'm going to do is go up to the top of this tree line and place 9 of these blueprints in a square grid. You can adjust these as needed, and you can use the attenuation spheres as a guide for general placement. Let's test it out.